I was 19 years old when I thought I understood what it meant to be a warrior. I had studied Wing Chun for years. My forms were flawless, my techniques sharp as razors. I could recite every principle my master had taught me, quote every ancient text about martial arts philosophy. I believed I was ready for anything. Then came the night that shattered everything I thought I knew about myself. It was in a back alley in Hong Kong, 3 against 1. Not a formal challenge, not a tournament with rules and referees. Just raw, brutal reality. Just raw, brutal reality. In that moment, with my heart pounding and adrenaline flooding my system, something extraordinary happened. Every perfect form I had practiced vanished. Every philosophical principle I had memorized crumbled too. What emerged instead was something I had never seen before. Something wild and instinctive and completely authentic. For the first time in my life, I wasn't performing martial arts. I was being martial arts. That night taught me the most profound truth I would ever learn. It's not what you know that defines you. It's not what you say or what you believe or what you intend. Action reveals character. In that split second, when everything is on the line, when there's no time to think or pretend or pose, your true self emerges. And sometimes, who you really are is nothing like who you thought you were. You know this feeling, don't you? That moment when life strips away all your carefully constructed plans and forces you to act on pure instinct. Maybe it was when you had to speak up for someone being treated unfairly. Maybe it was when you faced a deadline that seemed impossible. Maybe it was when someone you loved needed you most. In that moment, did you surprise yourself? Did you discover reserves of courage you didn't know you had? Or did you find yourself paralyzed by fears you thought you had conquered? This is what I want to explore with you today. Not the actions you plan or the person you aspire to be, but the truth that emerges when the pressure is on and there's nowhere to hide. Because here's what most people never realize. Your character isn't built in moments of comfort and certainty. It's forged in the fire of spontaneous action, revealed in those split seconds when you must choose without thinking, when your deepest programming takes over and shows the world who you really are. I remember walking into my first Hollywood meeting, convinced I was ready to take on the world. I had rehearsed every answer, prepared for every possible question. I knew exactly how to present myself as the perfect leading man, the martial arts expert who could bridge East and West. But when the executive looked at me and said, "You're too Chinese for American audiences and too American for Chinese audiences. Where exactly do you fit?" Every prepared response died in my throat. In that moment, I had a choice. I had a choice. I could try to reshape myself to fit their expectations, agree to play the stereotypical roles they had in mind, or I could act from my authentic self. Without thinking, without calculating the consequences, I stood up and said, "I don't fit into your categories because I am creating my own." That single action born from instinct rather than strategy set the course for everything that followed. It revealed something about my character that no amount of preparation could have shown, something I'm not sure I even knew was there until that moment. This is the power and the terror of authentic action. It doesn't just show others who you are, it shows you who you are. And sometimes that revelation is uncomfortable. Sometimes it reveals gaps between who you think you are and who you actually are and who you actually are. Sometimes it shows you strengths you never knew you had, and sometimes it exposes weaknesses you've been denying. I spent years studying the great masters, reading ancient texts about character and virtue. They all spoke of cultivating righteousness, of developing moral strength through discipline and practice. But there was something they didn't tell me, something I had to discover through my own experience. Character isn't something you develop in isolation. It's not built through meditation alone or perfected through repetition of forms. Character is revealed and strengthened through action, especially action under pressure. Think about the people you most admire. I guarantee it's not because of what they said or what they believed, but because of what they did. When Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat, she wasn't following a carefully planned strategy. She was acting from her deepest sense of right and wrong. Deepest sense of right and wrong. When Muhammad Ali refused to be drafted, he wasn't calculating the cost to his career. He was being true to his convictions, regardless of the consequences. These moments of authentic action didn't just change the world. They revealed the true character of these individuals, not just to others, but to themselves. But here's what makes this so challenging for most of us. We live in a world that rewards planning over spontaneity, image over authenticity, appearance over action. We're taught to think before we act, to consider all angles, to present ourselves in the best possible light. And while there's wisdom in thoughtful consideration, there's also danger in becoming so focused on managing our image that we lose touch with our authentic selves. Sirs, I see this everywhere in modern life. People who can talk eloquently about their values, but freeze when it's time to act on them. Individuals who know exactly what they should do, but find themselves doing something entirely different when the moment arrives. The gap between intention and action is where character lives, and for many people, it's a chasm they've never dared to examine. Let me tell you about the 3 types of action that reveal character most clearly. I didn't learn these in any martial arts manual or philosophy book. I discovered them through years of watching myself and others in moments of truth, moments when the mask comes off and the real person emerges. The first is spontaneous action, action without premeditation or planning. This is when you're walking down the street and see someone being harassed, and without thinking, you step in. Or when you're in a meeting and someone proposes something you know is wrong, and you find yourself speaking up before you've even decided to. These moments reveal your deepest programming, the values that have become so much a part of you that they operate below the level of conscious thought. I remember being on a movie set when I saw a stunt coordinator pushing a young actor beyond what was safe. I wasn't the star. I wasn't the director. I had no official authority, but something in me couldn't stay silent. I found myself walking over and firmly but respectfully intervening. Later, people asked me why I got involved, and I realized I hadn't made a conscious decision. The action emerged from something deeper than thought, from a part of my character that valued the safety of others more than my own comfort or position. The second type is persistent action, the kind that reveals character over time. This isn't the dramatic moment of truth, but the quiet daily choices that accumulate into who you become. Getting up early to train when you don't feel like it, keeping your word even when it's inconvenient, treating everyone with respect, regardless of their status, or what they can do for you. These actions might seem small, but they're like drops of water that eventually carve canyons in stone. When I was developing Jeet Kune Do, there were countless days when I wanted to give up, when the easier path would have been to stick with traditional methods that were already accepted. But day after day, I continued to question, to experiment, to push beyond conventional boundaries. Each small action of persistence, each decision to keep exploring rather than settling for what was comfortable, revealed and strengthened something in my character that I needed for the larger challenges that lay ahead, high ahead. The third type is contrary action, action that goes against the crowd, against expectations, against what's easy or popular. This is perhaps the most revealing of all, because it shows whether your character is built on your own foundation or on the approval of others. When everyone else is following one path, what do you do? When taking a stand will cost you socially or professionally, do you still take it? No. I faced this when I decided to teach martial arts to non-Chinese students. The traditional martial arts community was outraged. I was breaking centuries of tradition, betraying my cultural heritage, they said. Every social pressure was pushing me to conform, to keep the old ways intact. But something in my character, something revealed through action rather than thought, refused to accept that wisdom should be hoarded based on ethnicity. Each student I taught, each boundary I crossed, each tradition I challenged was an action that revealed not just my beliefs about martial arts, but my deepest convictions about human equality and the sharing of knowledge. But here's where it gets truly interesting. Character isn't just revealed through action, it's also shaped by action. Every time you act, you're not just showing who you are, you're becoming who you are. Every choice you make creates a neural pathway that makes similar choices easier in the future. Every time you act with courage, you become more courageous. Every time you act with integrity, you become more integrated. This is why action is so powerful and why it's so important to pay attention to the small choices as much as the big ones. I learned this lesson viscerally when I was recovering from my back injury. The doctors told me I would never do martial arts again, that my spine couldn't handle the stress. I had two choices: accept this limitation and find a new path, or take actions every day that defied this prognosis. I chose to act as if recovery was possible, even when I couldn't feel it, even when every movement brought pain. Day after day, I took small actions that aligned with who I believed I could become, rather than who the doctors said I was. Each painful stretch, each carefully executed movement, each decision to get up when everything in me wanted to stay down was an action that both revealed and shaped my character. I discovered reserves of determination I didn't know I had, but more importantly, I strengthened those reserves through each act of defiance against my limitations. The character that emerged from that period wasn't the same one that went into it. Action had transformed me at the deepest level. This is why I'm so passionate about this principle. Character revealed through action isn't just about understanding yourself better. That's important. It's about actively shaping who you become through conscious choice about how you act, especially in those moments when no one is watching. When there's no external reward. When the only thing driving you is your commitment to becoming who you want to be. Think about the last week of your life. Not the big dramatic moments, but the small choices. When you said you would call someone back, did you? When you committed to exercising or eating well or spending time on something important, did you follow through? When you had the opportunity to help someone or speak up for something you believe in, what did you do? These actions, far more than your intentions or your beliefs, reveal who you are right now and shape who you're becoming. Most people think character is something fixed, something you either have or don't have. But I've learned that character is like a muscle. It grows stronger with use and weaker with neglect. Every time you take action that aligns with your highest values, you strengthen that muscle. Every time you choose comfort over courage, convenience over integrity, or conformity over authenticity, you weaken it. This is why the martial arts are such a powerful metaphor for life. In the training hall, you can't fake your way through. Either you can execute the technique or you can't. Either you have the conditioning to go another round or you don't. Either you have the courage to face a stronger opponent or you don't. Training reveals exactly where you are and gives you the opportunity to strengthen what needs strengthening. But life is an even more demanding training hall. Every interaction is a sparring session. Every challenge is a test of your conditioning. Every moment when you have to choose between what's easy and what's right is an opportunity to reveal and strengthen your character. I want to share with you 5 specific ways that action reveals character, 5 tests that life constantly places before us. These aren't theoretical concepts. They're practical realities that show up in your daily experience, often when you least expect them. The first test is the test of inconvenience. How do you act when doing the right thing is difficult, time-consuming, or personally costly? It's easy to have integrity when it's convenient, to be generous when you have plenty, to be patient when you're not under pressure. But what happens when acting according to your values requires sacrifice? When I was starting out in Hollywood, I was offered roles that would have advanced my career but required me to portray stereotypes that went against everything I believed about Asian representation. Each time I turned down these roles, I was revealing something about my character through action. I was showing that my integrity was worth more than my career advancement, but I was also strengthening that part of my character that could make such choices in the future. The second test is the test of anonymity. How do you act when no one is watching? When there's no social reward or recognition for your behavior? This might be the truest test of character because it removes all external motivation. Do you pick up trash when no one sees you? Do you keep your commitments to yourself with the same rigor you keep your commitments to others? Do you treat service workers with the same respect you show to people who can advance your career? These actions, taken when there's no audience, reveal the most authentic aspects of your character. The third test is the test of opposition. How do you act when people disagree with you, criticize you, or actively work against you? It's natural to be kind to those who support you, fair to those who treat you fairly, patient with those who are patient with you. What happens when someone attacks your ideas, questions your competence, or treats you unfairly? In my early days teaching martial arts, I faced constant criticism from traditional masters who thought I was destroying their ancient art. My response to this criticism, the actions I took in the face of their opposition revealed something about my character that comfort and support never could have shown. The fourth test is the test of power. How do you act when you have authority over others, when you can get away with behavior that would normally have consequences? Power is perhaps the greatest revealer of character because it removes the external constraints that normally shape our behavior. When you're the boss, the teacher, the parent, the expert in the room, how do you treat those who can't fight back? When I achieved success in Hollywood, I suddenly found myself in rooms where my opinion carried weight, where people deferred to my judgment even when I wasn't certain I was right. How I used that influence, how I treated people who had less power than I did, revealed aspects of my character that years of struggle had never tested. The fifth test is the test of failure. How do you act when things don't go according to plan? When your efforts don't produce the results you expected? When you fall short of your own standards? Success can hide character flaws, but failure reveals them with brutal clarity. Brutal clarity. When my first attempts to break into Hollywood failed, when my early movies didn't perform as expected, when injuries threatened to end my career, I had to choose how to respond. Would I blame others, make excuses, give up on my dream? Or would I take responsibility, learn from the setbacks, and find new ways forward? These actions in the face of failure revealed and shaped my character more than any success ever could. But here's what I've learned about these tests. They're not pass or fail situations. Pass or fail situations. They're opportunities for growth. Every time you face one of these tests, every time you take action that reveals your character, you're given information about yourself. Sometimes that information is encouraging. Sometimes it's uncomfortable. But it's always valuable because it shows you exactly where you are and gives you the opportunity to choose where you want to go. The most profound realization I've had about character and action is this: you become what you repeatedly do. Not what you think about doing, not what you plan to do, not what you wish you could do, but what you actually do. Day after day, choice after choice, action after action. This is both terrifying and liberating. Terrifying because it means you can't hide behind good intentions or noble aspirations. Liberating because it means you have the power to change who you are, simply by changing what you do. When I was developing my philosophy of martial arts, I spent years reading ancient texts and studying different systems. But the real breakthroughs came not from thinking or reading, but from acting, from stepping onto the training floor and testing every idea against reality, from teaching students and seeing what actually worked, from fighting and discovering what held up under pressure. Action was my teacher, and the character that emerged from this education was stronger and more authentic than anything I could have developed through study alone. This is why I believe so strongly in the principle that action reveals character. It's not just a philosophical concept. It's a practical tool for understanding yourself and for consciously shaping who you become. When you pay attention to your actions, especially in those moments when you're under pressure or facing a choice between competing values, you gain insight into your true priorities, your real strengths, and your areas for growth. Let me give you a practical framework for using this principle in your own life. Every evening before you go to sleep, ask yourself 3 questions. First, what actions did I take today that I'm proud of? These don't have to be grand gestures. Maybe you listened fully when someone was talking to you, instead of thinking about what you wanted to say. Maybe you chose to exercise even though you didn't feel like it. Maybe you told the truth in a situation where a small lie would have been easier. These actions reveal positive aspects of your character and should be acknowledged and celebrated. Second, what actions did I take today that didn't align with my values? Again, these don't have to be major failures. Maybe you interrupted someone who was speaking. Maybe you checked your phone when you had committed to being present. Maybe you chose the easy path when you knew the right path required more effort. These actions reveal areas where your character can grow stronger, gaps between who you want to be and who you actually are in moments of choice. Third, what opportunities for character revealing action did I miss today? Maybe there was a moment when you could have spoken up for someone, but stayed silent. You had the chance to help someone, but were too busy or distracted. Maybe you could have pushed yourself to grow, but chose comfort instead. These missed opportunities are just as revealing as the actions you took because they show you the areas where fear, habit, or comfort zone thinking is limiting your authentic expression. The goal isn't to judge yourself harshly or to demand perfection. The goal is to become more conscious of the relationship between your actions and your character, to notice the patterns that shape who you're becoming, and to make increasingly intentional choices about how you want to show up in the world. I've been practicing this kind of self-examination for decades, and I can tell you that it's transformed not just my understanding of myself, but my ability to act with greater authenticity and power. When you become conscious of how your actions reveal and shape your character, you begin to see every choice as an opportunity for growth, every challenge as a chance to strengthen who you are, every interaction as a moment to express your highest values. But there's another layer to this that I want to explore with you. Action doesn't just reveal your individual character, it reveals your relationship to the world around you. How you act toward others, toward your environment, toward your responsibilities, toward your opportunities, shows not just who you are, but how you see yourself in relation to everything else. When I moved to America, I was struck by how different the culture of action was. In Hong Kong, there were rigid hierarchies, established ways of doing things, clear roles and expectations. In America, there was more freedom to act according to your individual judgment, but also more responsibility for the consequences of your actions. This cultural difference taught me something important. The same action can have different meanings in different contexts, but the character it reveals remains consistent. Whether I was in Hong Kong, following traditional protocols, or in Hollywood, breaking new ground, the actions that came from my deepest convictions always felt the same. They had a quality of authenticity, of alignment between inner truth and outer expression. That was recognizable regardless of the cultural context. This taught me that while the forms of action might change, the essence of character revealing action remains constant across all situations. This is why I encourage people not to wait for the perfect moment or the ideal circumstances to begin acting according to their highest values. Character isn't revealed only in extraordinary situations. It's revealed in the ordinary moments that make up the majority of your life. How you treat the cashier at the grocery store reveals your character just as much as how you handle a major crisis. How you respond to traffic jams reveals your character just as much as how you respond to life-changing opportunities. The quality I look for in character, revealing action, is what I call effortless effort. This is action that flows naturally from who you are, that doesn't require force or strain because it's aligned with your deepest nature. It's like water flowing downhill, taking the path of least resistance while still moving powerfully toward its destination. When your actions have this quality, you know you're acting from your authentic self rather than from social conditioning or ego-driven motivation. And I experienced this most clearly in my martial arts practice. There were techniques I could execute perfectly, but that required tremendous effort and concentration. And there were techniques that flowed so naturally, they felt like breathing. The difference wasn't in the complexity of the movement or the amount of training required. The difference was in how well the technique aligned with my natural way of moving, my body's unique strengths and proportions, my individual style of expression. The same principle applies to character. There are ways of being in the world that require constant effort to maintain, that feel like swimming upstream, that drain your energy even when you're doing things that are technically right. And there are ways of being that feel natural and sustainable, that energize rather than deplete you, that allow you to act powerfully without forcing or straining. The key is to pay attention to both types of experience and to notice what they tell you about your authentic character. The actions that feel forced or unnatural might be coming from social conditioning or from an image of who you think you should be rather than who you actually are. You actions that feel effortless and energizing are more likely to be expressions of your true character. This doesn't mean that character-revealing action is always easy or comfortable. Sometimes acting according to your values requires you to face fear, to endure discomfort, to risk criticism or rejection. But even in these challenging moments, there's a quality of rightness, of alignment, that distinguishes authentic action from action that's motivated by external pressure or internal confusion. I remember the decision to create my own martial arts style rather than continue teaching traditional Wing Chun. This was not an easy choice. It meant breaking with my teacher, challenging established traditions, facing criticism from the martial arts community. But despite the external difficulties, the action felt effortless in the sense that it flowed directly from my deepest understanding of what martial arts could be. Every step I took in developing Jeet Kune Do felt like an expression of something that was already inside me, waiting to be revealed. This is the paradox of character revealing action. It often requires courage and determination, but it also has a quality of naturalness and inevitability. When you're acting from your authentic character, even difficult choices feel right in a way that easy but inauthentic choices never do. Now I want to challenge you with something that might change how you see yourself and your potential for growth. Most people think of character as something relatively fixed, something that was formed in childhood and remains basically the same throughout life. But my experience has taught me that character is much more fluid and responsive to conscious development than most people realize. Every action you take is not just revealing your current character, it's also creating your future character. This means you have much more power to shape who you become than you might think. You're not stuck with the patterns of behavior that have defined you in the past. You can literally act your way into becoming a different kind of person. This was driven home to me during my recovery from my back injury. The doctors had told me I would never do martial arts again, that my spine couldn't handle the stress. For months, I accepted this limitation and acted accordingly. I was careful, protective, afraid to push my body beyond what felt safe. And the character that emerged from these actions was increasingly timid and limited. But then I made a conscious decision to act as if recovery was possible, even when I couldn't feel it, even when every movement brought pain. I began with the smallest possible actions, movements so gentle they barely qualified as exercise. But I did them consistently, day after day, always pushing just slightly beyond what felt comfortable. Each action was a statement about who I was choosing to become rather than an expression of who I currently was. Over time, these actions didn't just change my physical condition. They changed my character. The person who emerged from that period of deliberate action was more determined, more resilient, more willing to face uncertainty and discomfort in pursuit of growth. The actions I took created neural pathways and thought patterns that made similar choices easier in other areas of my life. This is the transformative power of conscious action. You can literally practice being the person you want to become until that practice becomes your natural way of being. But this requires a shift in how you think about action. Instead of waiting until you feel brave to act bravely, you act bravely until you become brave. Instead of waiting until you feel confident to act confidently, you act confidently until confidence becomes part of your character. The key is to start small and be consistent. If you want to develop the character trait of generosity, you don't need to give away all your possessions. You can start by leaving bigger tips, by bringing coffee for a colleague, by offering your seat to someone on public transportation. These small actions, repeated consistently, will literally rewire your brain to make generous behavior more natural and automatic. If you want to develop courage, you don't need to immediately face your biggest fears. You can start by speaking up in small situations where you normally stay quiet, by trying new things that feel slightly outside your comfort zone, by taking on challenges that stretch your abilities just enough to require growth without overwhelming you. The beauty of this approach is that it works regardless of your starting point. No matter what your current character traits, no matter what patterns have defined you in the past, you can begin today to take actions that move you toward who you want to become. Character is not destiny. Character is choice expressed through action, accumulated over time. But I want to warn you about something that can sabotage this process. It's what I call action without alignment. This is when you try to force yourself to act in ways that aren't connected to your authentic values and motivations. When action comes from should rather than from genuine desire to grow, it's usually unsustainable and often counterproductive. I see this frequently in people who read self-help books or attend motivational seminars and then try to dramatically change their behavior overnight. They might start exercising vigorously, networking aggressively, or adopting habits that look good on paper. but don't connect to their deeper sense of purpose. These efforts usually fail because they're not rooted in authentic motivation. The actions that most powerfully reveal and develop character are those that emerge from your deepest values and aspirations. They feel challenging, but not foreign, stretching, but not straining. They require you to grow, but in directions that feel aligned with who you truly are and who you genuinely want to become. This is why self-knowledge is so important to character development. Before you can effectively choose actions that will shape your character, you need to have some clarity about what kind of character you want to develop. This doesn't mean you need to have everything figured out, but you do need to have some sense of the values and qualities that matter most to you. For me, this clarity came through martial arts practice. The training hall was like a laboratory where I could experiment with different ways of being and see immediately what worked and what didn't. I discovered that I valued directness over cleverness, authenticity over image, growth over comfort. These discoveries then guided my choices in other areas of life, helping me select actions that would strengthen these character traits rather than working against them. You might find this clarity through different means. Maybe it comes through relationships that challenge you to be your best self. Maybe it comes through work that demands you develop new capabilities. Maybe it comes through travel, through service to others, through creative expression, or through spiritual practice. The specific path doesn't matter as much as the willingness to engage in activities that reveal your authentic values and aspirations. Once you have some clarity about the character traits you want to develop, the next step is to identify specific actions that would express and strengthen those traits. These should be actions that you can take regularly, that are within your current capabilities, but require some stretch, and that connect clearly to the character qualities you're trying to develop. If you want to develop discipline, you might commit to a simple daily practice like meditation, exercise, or journaling. If you want to develop compassion, you might look for opportunities to help others, to listen more deeply, or to respond with kindness in situations where your normal reaction might be impatience or judgment. If you want to develop courage, you might challenge yourself to speak up more often, to try new things, or to face situations that typically make you uncomfortable. The key is consistency rather than intensity. Small actions repeated daily will transform your character more effectively than dramatic gestures performed occasionally. This is because character is built through the accumulation of choices, through the gradual strengthening of neural pathways that make certain behaviors more automatic and natural. I practiced this principle when I was developing my philosophy of martial arts. Instead of waiting for a grand revelation or trying to create an entirely new system overnight, I made small experiments every day. I would modify a technique slightly, try a different approach to teaching, question one assumption about how combat should work. Each small action was a step toward the larger vision I was developing, but more importantly, each action was strengthening my character traits of curiosity, innovation, and willingness to challenge conventional wisdom. Over time, these small daily actions accumulated into a significant transformation, both in my martial arts and in my character. The person who emerged from this process was more creative, more confident in his own judgment, and more willing to stand alone when necessary. But this transformation didn't happen through dramatic moments of insight. It happened through the accumulation of countless small actions that gradually revealed and shaped who I was becoming. This brings me to what might be the most important point about action and character. The goal is not to become perfect, but to become authentic. Perfect people don't exist, but authentic people do. And they're far more powerful and influential than those who try to present a flawless image to the world. Authentic action comes from your real motivations, acknowledges your actual capabilities and limitations, and expresses your genuine values even when they don't align with what others expect or approve of. This kind of action is powerful because it's grounded in truth rather than in image management or social conformity. I learned this lesson painfully in my early years in Hollywood. I spent considerable energy trying to be what I thought casting directors and producers wanted me to be. I modified my accent, adjusted my personality, even considered changing my name to something more American. But the actions that came from this motivation felt forced and unnatural, and they weren't effective because they weren't authentic. It wasn't until I decided to act from my genuine self, to express my real personality and abilities, rather than a manufactured version designed to please others. So I began to find success. The roles that came to me after I made this shift were much better suited to who I actually was, and my performance in them was more powerful because it came from authentic expression rather than imitation. The same principle applies to character development. The most effective actions for strengthening your character are those that feel like natural extensions of who you already are, pushed slightly beyond your current comfort zone. They should challenge you to grow without requiring you to become someone entirely different. This is why it's so important to pay attention to the quality of your actions, not just their external results. Actions that feel forced or unnatural, even if they produce good outcomes, are less effective for character development than actions that feel aligned and authentic, even if their immediate results are less dramatic. When action flows from authentic character, it has a quality of power and effectiveness that can't be achieved through technique alone. It's like the difference between a mechanical reproduction of a martial arts form. The external movements might look similar, but the energy and impact are completely different. This authentic power is what I'm ultimately encouraging you to develop. Not the ability to imitate someone else's version of good character, but the capacity to act consistently from your own deepest values and highest aspiration. Not the skill to present a perfect image to the world, but the courage to express your real self, including your struggles and imperfections, in ways that inspire growth in yourself and others. As we come toward the end of our time together, I want to leave you with a challenge, but also with a promise. The challenge is this: for the next 30 days, pay attention to your actions with the understanding that they are both revealing and creating your character. Notice the gap between your intentions and your actions. Notice which actions feel effortless and authentic, and which feel forced or unnatural. Notice how your actions affect not just your external circumstances, but your internal sense of who you are. But more than just noticing, I challenge you to choose one character trait that you want to strengthen and to identify one small daily action that would express and develop that trait. Maybe it's the courage to speak up more often. Maybe it's the discipline to maintain a daily practice. Maybe it's the compassion to listen more deeply to others. Whatever it is, commit to taking that action every day for 30 days, not because you have to, but because you want to discover what kind of person you become when you act consistently from your highest value. The promise is this: if you take this challenge seriously, if you really pay attention to the relationship between your actions and your character, you will discover things about yourself that surprise you. You will find reserves of strength and wisdom that you didn't know you had. You will also find areas for growth that you might have been avoiding or denying. Both discoveries are gifts because they give you more conscious choice about who you become. More importantly, you will begin to experience the deep satisfaction that comes from living authentically, from knowing that your actions are expressions of your real self, rather than performances designed to meet others' expectations. This satisfaction is different from the temporary pleasure that comes from external achievements or recognition. It's the lasting contentment that comes from integrity, from the alignment between who you are and how you act in the world. Remember, character isn't revealed only in the big moments, the dramatic choices, the life-changing decisions. Character is revealed in the small choices you make when no one is watching, in how you treat people who can't do anything for you, in whether you keep your commitments to yourself with the same rigor you keep your commitments to others. Action reveals character, but action also creates character. You have more power to shape who you become than you might think. You are not stuck with the patterns that have defined you in the past. Through conscious choice about how you act, especially in those small daily moments that seem insignificant, you can literally become a different kind of person. The question is not whether you have good character or bad character. The question is whether you're actively participating in shaping your character or allowing it to be shaped by circumstance, habit, and the expectations of others. Are you choosing your actions based on who you want to become? Or are you simply reacting based on who you've been? Every moment offers you a new choice, a new opportunity to act in ways that express and strengthen the character traits you most value. You don't have to wait for perfect conditions or complete clarity about your life's purpose. You can start where you are, with what you have, taking small actions that move you in the direction of who you want to become. The mirror of action is always available to you. It shows you exactly who you are right now and gives you the power to consciously participate in who you're becoming. Look into that mirror, not with judgment, but with curiosity. See what it reveals about your current character, and then choose your next action based on the character you want to develop. Your life is your dojo, and every action is your practice. Train well, my friend. Act from your deepest truth and discover the character that emerges when you have the courage to be authentically yourself in a world that often rewards conformity over authenticity. Action reveals character, but you choose the action. Choose wisely, choose consciously, and choose in alignment with who you truly are and who you dare to become. The world needs people of authentic character now more than ever, and you have everything you need to become such a person, one action at a time.